Good day, my esteemed viewers. You're welcome to Literature Hub 247, where the art and science of literature are discussed. Today, we are going to discuss another important topic in literature, that is, plot. So, this video is titled Plot in Literature. The video is exclusive because of the infographic materials used to explain this topic, so that we can understand the topic very well. Let's go into the classroom. Plot in literature. What is plot? Plot is the sequence of events that make up a story. It's not simply a list of things that happen. Rather, it's a carefully crafted arrangement of events designed to engage the reader, create suspense, and ultimately lead to a resolution. What we are saying here is that we don't just arrange events and call it a plot. A plot should be able to engage the reader. The writer of a plot or the writer of the narrative should be able to create suspense which lead to a resolution. So don't just arrange events and call it a plot. Plot is the how of the story, while the story itself is the what. It's the roadmap that guides the reader through the narrative journey. So it guides the readers from the beginning to the end of the narrative. Now let's look at the key elements of plot. The key elements of plot. While plot structures can vary, most plots share several key elements. That is how the events are arranged in a narrative. That is what we are discussing under this topic. The key elements of plot, the arrangement of the events in the narrative. The first one is exposition. This is the beginning of the story, where the author introduces the setting, characters, and initial situation. This is the initial stage where the characters are introduced, the settings, whether it's a village setting or the events are taking place in the city. So the writer introduces all this at the exposition stage. It provides the background information necessary for understanding the story. While introducing the character, it gives us information about each of the characters at this stage. The next one is rising action. Rising action. This is where the conflict begins to develop. Events unfold that complicate the situation and build tension. So at this stage, the writer introduces conflict. This is where the protagonist and the antagonist clash. The protagonist faces challenges and obstacles that propel the story forward. The obstacle faced by the protagonist is clash with the antagonist. From the rising action, we now move to the climax. Climax is the highest point of conflict. The highest point of conflict. This is the turning point of the story, the moment of highest tension and drama. Is the point where the protagonist confront the central conflict head-on. The outcome of the climax often determines the fate of the protagonist. Now, when the conflict reaches the highest, it now calls for action from the protagonist. The action of the protagonist now lead us to the following action. The tension will be reducing from the next stage. Now, following action. This follows the climax and shows the consequences of the protagonist's actions. The tension begins to decrease as the story moves towards its resolution. Loose ends are tied up and the aftermath of the climax is explored. At this stage, we are gradually moving to the end of the narrative, where solution is sought to the problem on ground. So the final stage is resolution or denouement. Maybe asked in the exam, another name for resolution is dash. So the answer is denouement. Now this is the end of the story, where the conflict is resolved and the story comes to a close. The reader learns the final outcome of the event and the fate of the characters. Now let's look at the infographic representation of what we just explained. So it starts from exposition, where we have introducing setting, characters, and initial situation. Next stage is rising action, where conflict develops, tension builds, challenges arise. That is the clash of the protagonist and the antagonist. So the clash here reaches the climax. That is the next stage. That's why we have climax as the next stage. Turning point, highest tension. Protagonist confronts conflict. So with the highest point of conflict, which is climax, solution is sought. The protagonist will take some actions here that will reduce the tension. We now move to the following action. Consequences of actions. Tension decreases, loose end tie. Now the last stage is resolution or denouement. Conflict resolved, story concludes, final outcome revealed. Let's also look at the types of plot structure. Types of plot structure or types of plot. Authors employ various plot structures to tell their stories. Here are some of the most common. The first one is traditional plot or pyramid through triangle. This is the most common and recognizable plot structure. Following the classic exposition, rising action, climax, falling action, and resolution sequence. Is often visualized as a pyramid or triangle with the climax at the peak. This follows what we have just explained now. Is the most commonly used type of plot, and very simple because the events follow from the beginning to the end. The next one is in media res. This plot structure begins in the middle of the action, often with a dramatic event. The exposition is revealed later through flashbacks or other narrative techniques. This is when an action starts abruptly in the middle. So the author now makes use of other techniques to bring to the fore the past event. The author might use flashbacks, letter writing, or dreams or other techniques to tell us about the past event. This can immediately grab the reader's attention and create a sense of mystery. A good example is Paths of Lucas by Susan Belfort. Paths of Lucas is in the new syllabus, that is 2026 to 2030 YX syllabus. So this technique is used in Paths of Lucas. The next one is circular plot. Circular plot. This plot structure begins and ends in the same place or with the same event. The story often explores a character's journey or transformation, ultimately returning them to their starting point, but with a new understanding or perspective. So the narrative's end where it begins. That's why it is called circular plot. We also have episodic plot. This plot structure consists of a series of loosely connected episodes or scenes. The narratives here are divided into episodes. Each episode may have its own mini plot, but they are all related to the overall story. All the episodes may have the same subject matter, but each will have their mini plot. This structure is often used in adventure stories or stories with a large cast of characters. The next one is parallel plot. This plot structure involves two or more separate storylines that run parallel to each other. The storylines may eventually intersect or converge, or they may remain separate but thematically related. The last one is anti-plot. Anti-plot. This plot structure deliberately avoids traditional plot convention. It does not follow the normal system of plot. It may be fragmented, non-linear, or lack a clear resolution. This type of plot is often used in experimental or avant-garde literature. This avant-garde are a group of people that introduce new techniques into the art. So they may decide to divert from the normal way of narrating stories. So those are the types of plots we have in literature. Now, in conclusion, understanding plot is essential for appreciating and analyzing literature. That is, if we understand the meaning of plot, the type of plot, the element of plot, we'll be able to appreciate literature work. By recognizing the key elements of plots and the different types of plot structures, readers can gain a deeper understanding of the author's intention and the overall meaning of the story. That's what I've just explained. Also, for writers, a strong understanding of plot is crucial for crafting compelling and engaging narrative that will captivate their audience. When a writer understands plot very well, he or she will be able to write an engaging narrative that will interest the audience. Please, if you are new on this platform, try and click on the subscribe button and the bell icon so that we're part of this class. You are free to share my video on any social media platform. Invite your friends and colleagues to join us. If you have any question, send your question to the comment section and it will be attended to. Thank you and God bless. Let's meet in the next class.